We are here to talk about hypotheses and variables, so let's get into it. So, how would you answer this question? I wonder what will happen to my plant if I leave it in the closet with no light. So, because hopefully you've thought of an answer in your head, but because I can't hear you, I'm going to propose an answer. And my proposed answer is, if I leave my plant in the closet with no light, then the plant will die. Okay, reasonable answer to that question. And what I've done is I have just come up with a hypothesis. So my statement, my answer, if I leave my plant in the closet with no light, then the plant will die, is the hypothesis. If I do this, then this will happen. So let's take a minute here and write down a definition for hypothesis. All right. So one definition is a hypothesis is a tentative prediction that can be tested and is based on observation and or scientific knowledge. So I could have answered that question. I answered it out of my scientific knowledge. So I have enough understanding of how plants work that I know that if I take the light away, the plant will die. But if I didn't know that, I could have tested it, right? I could have stuck the plant in the closet and seen what happened. And that would have been, then my hypothesis would have been based on observation. Okay. Here's another one. So what hypothesis would you suggest for this question? And the question is, how does my distance from a basket, like a waste basket, affect how many shots I can make if I'm throwing wadded up paper, for example? So how does my distance from the basket affect how many shots I can make? So a possible hypothesis would be that if I move farther from the basket, I will make fewer shots. That makes sense. Now, there are many other hypotheses you could propose to this question. One, you could just put it in different words, right? If I move closer to the basket, I will make more shots. Or maybe you don't even think that's what's going to happen. Maybe you think if you move farther that you're going to make more shots. So whatever, right? It's just if I do this, this is going to happen. So what we're it's an if then. If I do this, this will happen. And basically what we're doing is we're defining the variables in an experiment. So if we were to actually complete an experiment based on our hypothesis, we need to have variables. So that's what we need to define here is these term independent and dependent variables. So let's see, I've got a bunch of different words here. So an independent variable, all right, this is getting in the way. I don't know how to, maybe I'll just do that, move it out of the way. The independent variable is what you manipulate. So if that doesn't help you, hang on, I've got some more words. Whereas the dependent is what you measure. Let's add a couple more here. The independent variable is the cause and the dependent variable is the effect. And then I'm actually going to write in a couple more here. The independent variable is what I change in a experiment. And the dependent is the data that's collected. And going back to our if-then terminology, the if part of the statement is the independent variable. So if I do this, so if I do, and doing is manipulating, right? So if I do something, then the effect will be the data that I measure. That's the dependent variable. So what happens here is dependent on what you did here. I'm trying to think, did I put everything here I wanted to? Oh, I know what I wanted to point out. I love memory tricks, and a memory trick is to remember which is which. Is if you're thinking in terms of if or the I change, the I part of it matches up with the I for independent. So I change the independent variable, whereas the data I collect is the dependent variable. So that's how I make sure that I don't flip those by accident. All right, so let's see. Going back to our hypothesis that if I move farther from the basket, I will make fewer shots. What is the independent variable? What is the dependent variable? Take a second and identify them in your head. So basically, we've got 2 points. If I move farther from the basket, oh, forgot to turn on the pen. If I move farther from the basket, I will make fewer shots. So what I'm doing, the if part of it, this is the independent, is this portion, the if statement. And the dependent is what happens as a result, and that's the I will make fewer shots. So dependent is I will make fewer shots. Okay, sorry, that was a little messy. Okay, and then the last note here is in an experiment, of course, you want to change one variable at a time. So if you change not only how far you were from the basket, but the height of the basket off the floor, then you wouldn't know what caused your result, right? So change one variable at a time. And the final little bit here is the stuff that you don't change, we call those the controls in an experiment. So there you go. That is the vocab you need.